송출할
그럼
수
이 세션 시작할 때
네, 그때
영어에서
원장님께서
한국어로 고치겠습니다.
네, 원장님. 네,
그러면
감사합니다.
통역은 세팅이 됐다라고 보고 지금 김민종 발표자님 코이카에서 와 계신데 한번 말씀해 보시죠. 그리고 PPT도 업로드하면서 하실 수 있으시죠? 팀장님,
네,
반갑습니다.
안녕하세요.
잘 들리는 것 같아요.
다 들리시나요? 네네.
잘 들리는 것 같습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 안녕하세요.
네, 조금 이따 뵙겠습니다. 그래서 저희가 지금 발표자만 하나,
화면
팀장님.
공유만 한번 해봐도 될까요?
네네, 지금 하게 했거든요. 한번 해봐 주셔요.
네. 혹시 잘 보이시나요?
네네, 잘 보이고 있습니다.
아, 네, 알겠습니다. 이렇게 하겠습니다.
네. 화면 공유 꺼주시고요. 그 다음에 이지연 팀장님은 아직 안 오신 것 같고, 1세션 사회가 누구시죠? 저기 장혜영 교수님 오셨네요. 교수님 한번 말씀해 주실래요? 장혜영 교수님.
네, 앞에서 좀 회의가 조금 늦게 끝나가지고
지금 아직 시작 안 해서
네네네.
네, 좋습니다. 잘 들리고요. 이지연 선생님은 아마 들어오시겠죠? 그러면 좀 이따가.
네, 시간 맞춰서 아마 들어올 겁니다.
네네. 그래서 1차는 저희가 지금 두 분 김민종 팀장님 코이카랑 수출입은행의 이지연 팀장님이시고 장혜영 교수님이 이제 하시고 그래서 저희가 시간이 1시간 가량 하고 그 다음에 이제 이 세션부터는 영어로 하고 영어 한국어로 하면 한중이랑 한러에서 이제 중국어와 러시아로 받고 이렇게 하겠습니다.
근데 원장님 6시 10분부터 하는 라운드 테이블 있잖아요.
네네.
오픈 포럼 이거는 어떤 식으로
그러니까 지금 2세션이랑 3세션에서 한 10분가량씩 토론자가 토론하시잖아요. 그러면 그때 뭐 서로 Q&A를 하거나 이럴 시간이 별로 없어요. 그래서 그냥 마지막에는 지금까지 토론자들이나 이 중에 질문하거나 토론을 뭐 추가로 언급하실 거 있으면 한 10분 이내로 해서 이제 추가로 조금씩 뭐 말씀하실 분 있으시면 하시고 그러시면 될 것 같아요. 특별히 뭐 사회자는 그냥 추가로 질문 있으신 분들 좀 이렇게 유도해 주시면은
네네네 알겠습니다. 알겠습니다.
원장님 바로 시작 전 너무 죄송합니다. 지금 태윤정 씨 한문과에 입당했어요. 네, 한 번만 윤정치 통역사에 추가 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
통역사 최윤정으로 돼 있나요?
그냥 영어로 되어 있습니다, 원장님. 윤정
최윤정.
통역, 네, 영어로 되어 있습니다.
윤으로 돼 있네요.
네.
된 것 같고요.
네,
다 됐죠?
네.
네, 그럼 5분 후에 시작하면 될 것 같아요. I see the Professor Phung Mai Nguyen from Vietnam. Hello, could you say something so we can test your
Hello.
mic situation?
Hello,
Hi.
can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you okay. All right, how are you doing, Professor?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you so very much. So your session is at 3, but you are here. Thank you very much. Okay. 이지연 선생님은 아직 안 들어오셨죠?
네, 아직 안 들어오신 것
네네.
같은데요.
두 번째 발표니까 예, 여유는 있는 것
네네.
같고요. 아마
네네.
장현 교수님 마지막 그 토론 세션에서 학생들이 또 질문할 수도 있을 것 같고요. 그래서 질문할 때 뭐 학생들이 창으로 채팅창으로 할 수도 있고
네,
예,
네네네.
혹시 질문이 있으면 예, 질문도 받으시면 좋을 것 같아요.
알겠습니다. 네. 질문이 있을까요?
예, 날카로운 질문이.
언제나 걱정하고 있습니다. 질문이 있을까요? 언제나 걱정하고
예,
있습니다.
예. 사회자님의 막중한 책임이. 1분 후에 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 박소연, 예, 그 수출입은행에서도 지금 세팅하고 있는 것 같습니다.
네네네.
네네. Hello, Ashini.
Hi, Professor. Hi, everyone.
It is nice of you to join us, right? So please just say hello to GSIS students. Please, students, Ashuni is the graduate of GSIS. So he was here from 2018 to 2019, right?
Yes, hi, students. Yeah, I was there 2018 to 2020, and after that, I'm working in Korea. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this interesting discussion, and it is very timely, you know. Also, this is the area of my interest, so I'm looking forward to hear from all the expertise. And dear students, it's also a big opportunity for you to understand this session, also to improve your networks with the expertise and professors, and hope we all enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, great. So, okay. 김태형 교수님, say hello, please.
안녕하세요.
Thank you. Hi. 예, 제가
다들 얼굴
통역기기.
보니까 반갑습니다.
예, 제가 김유진 씨 통역을 지금 다시 한번 좀 세팅을 할게요. 김유진 씨가 몇 번인지. 중국어 설정. 예. 김유진 씨를 삭제한 다음에 다시 한번 할게요. 김유진 씨는 한글로 돼 있나요? 여기 창에 이름이. 예, 김유진 통역사여야겠죠?
원장님.
통역사, 한국어,
네.
중국어.
원장님, 저기 코리아 엑스에서 저기 세팅 거의 다 된 것 같은데
네네.
한번
예,
물어봐 주시겠습니까?
예.
네.
So, 예, 잠시만. 통역사 지금 요거 김유진 씨 세팅하고. 네, 김유진 씨 세팅됐고요. 그 이지연 팀장님 안녕하세요.
네, 안녕하십니까. 이지연 기자.
네. 예, 오늘 발표 수락해 주셔서 감사합니다. 발표일 김민정 팀장님도 와 계시고요. 그러면 소리는 잘 들리는 것 같아요. 그러면 준비는 다 된 것 같습니다. 그래서 제2세션의 토론자분은 김태형 교수님 와 계시고 그 다음에 닥터 자랑, 닥터 팬디는 좀 이따 들어오실 것 같습니다. 예, 그러면 제가 북 치고 또 장구를 치는 것 같네요. 그러면 지금부터 시작을 할까요? 그럼 시작을 하기로 하겠습니다. 그래서 제가 이제 웰커밍 리마크 하고 그 다음에 1세션에서는 장혜영 교수님 사회로 발표 두 개가 있겠습니다. 그러면 thank you for coming today, everybody. So I'm Sunny Chun, Dean of GSIS of Chung-Ang University. So let us start our session. Okay, distinguished speakers, honorable professors, guests and students, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sunny Chun, Dean of GSIS at Chung-Ang University. It is my great honor to give an opening remarks for the GSIS-KOICA webinar, which is held under the title of International Development and Cooperation during Pandemic in Asia. It has been almost 2 years since we have been struck by the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic presented us many challenges and tasks. During the pandemic, borders were closed and global supply chain was widely disrupted, making us to pause and ponder on the advantages and disadvantages of globalization we have been avidly pursuing. It is more important than ever to consider the benefits of cross-border cooperation through international development and cooperation, and to think about building new global value chains suitable for the post-pandemic era. We believe today's webinar will provide insight into this matter. Today, we invited Mr. Kim Min-jong of KOICA and Mrs. Lee Ji-yeon of Export-Import Bank of Korea to present an in-depth analysis of the roles of the two institutions and the challenges they face. In the panel discussion, renowned experts from Asia are invited. Dr. Zhao from Shandong University, China, Dr. Pendi from Nepal, from South Asian Studies, and Professor Phuong Mai Nguyen at VNU International School, Vietnam, and Mr. Darpi from Cambodia, as well as Professor Taeyoung Kim and Woo Hyung Chun from GSIS of CAU, will provide their perspectives on the issue. Today's event is part of the KOICA project of enhancing the university's understanding of international development and cooperation. This webinar is the first of its kind, and we hope that today's event will serve as a cornerstone for experts from Asia to meet regularly in the future to discuss issues related to international development and cooperation. The webinar is held in conjunction with the GSIS Leader Forum, and we believe that students at GSIS will learn a lot from the webinar today. And I also thank you, Professor Chun Hae-jin, who was supervising today's webinar. Please note that the AITP students at GSIS are providing Korean English, Korean Chinese, and Korean Russian simultaneous interpretations. And the webinar is being broadcasted live in YouTube channel. I believe we'll have a fruitful discussion today, and I also thank Professor Yong-sik Ju and Hae-young Chang, who will be moderating the sessions. Thank you very much. All right, so I think whether it was okay for Korean, Chinese, Korean, Russian interpretation was okay. All right, so let me hand my mic to Professor Chang Hae-young, who will be moderating session 1.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is the Professor Chang Hae-young from the Department of Political Science and International Relations at Chung-Ang University. I'll be your moderator in the first session. And this is my great pleasure, actually, the invited from the director Kim Min-jung from the KOICA, as well as the Lee Ji-yeon from the Edcf from Korea Exim. Okay, let's go back to the Korean, from the English to the Korean. This is the first session actually held in the Korean. So I'm pretty sure that our interpreter will have such a great job to interpret it from my Korean to the excellent English. Okay. 자, 안녕하십니까? 다시 인사드리겠습니다. 예, 중앙대학교 정치국제학과의 장혜영 교수입니다. 오늘 1세션에서 제가
Chung-Ang University GSIS. In this session 1, I'm going to talk about the ODA in Korea, and I'm going to talk about KOICA, which is implementing this ODA. Also, we're going to discuss how these institutions are facing the changes right now, and how the KOICA and Exim Bank are leading the international development and cooperation.
Recording in progress.
And for me, I think this is my biggest interest. So today we have Director Kim Min-jung and Lee Ji-yeon with us today. So we're going to hear from them how the two institutions are working out in the midst of COVID-19, and in the midst of these changes, how will these two institutions have a direction for the international development and cooperation. So we will hear from these two speakers, and that's why we have invited you to this webinar. So first, we have about 50 minutes for this session 1. So if possible, can you each present with a 20 minutes of time? And if we have a spare time, then we'll get the questions from the audience. So I hope that you can use the spare time for the Q&A session if we have one. Now we'll begin with Director Kim Min-jung.
네, 안녕하세요. 혹시 들리실까요?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
안녕하세요. 코이카 대외 협력 신사업팀의 김민종.
Hello, everyone. I am Director Kim Min-jung from the External Affairs Department. Thank you for giving me this precious time to give my presentation. So for 20 minutes, I'm going to give my presentation. As you all know, right now is the 10th anniversary of OECD, and in this meaningful time, I am happy to participate in this forum.
영상을 보이시죠? 예.
Can you all see my screen?
한 24개 정도 슬라이드 준비했고요.
I prepared 24 slides, so I'm going to briefly touch upon the first part, and I'm going to go deeply into the main body of my presentation on what the KOICA is doing. Some of you may not be familiar with KOICA, and some of you may not be familiar with ODA. So I would like to present you two films. KOICA now missed its 30th anniversary since its establishment, so I'm going to talk about the backgrounds against KOICA's establishment. I'm sure that you all know the movie Ode to My Father and the film Mogadishu, which was released recently. If you look at the film Ode to My Father, you can see that Korea Development Corporation was established in 1965. Centering around Korea Development Corporation, we had 5 departments, and these 5 departments were integrated with one another, creating KOICA for the external development affairs. And the main character of this film was sent to Germany and met with a nurse at Germany and married together. The miners and the nurses at the time who were dispatched to Germany were all dispatched from the Korea Development Corporation. And you can see the scene from the movie that Hwang Jung-min actor is having an interview. This shows that it has dedicated greatly to the Korea's economic advancement. And the amount of charity was about 100 million. And during the 60s, with the stop of the US ODA, it has been a great help to the Korea. This is the first scene from the film Mogadishu. In 1991, we were established, and if you look at here, I think you can get the hint from it. So in the first scene, at the Somali University, there was a ceremony celebrating the technology internship. At the time, the North and the South joined the United Nations, and at the time, in the embassy of the South and the North Korea, there were various talks related to it. So at the time, in the 90s, both South and the North joined the United Nations. And against that background, KOICA was established. Now I'm going to talk about the mandate of our organization. The reason why I showed you the part of the film is because for the last 28 years, KOICA was a one whole organization. And in 2019, with the change of legal system, we changed our mandate. It was a very important event. In the past, we tried to assist the development countries and mutual cooperation with others. And we had to revise this in a modern way and promoted the enhancement of life and humanitarian aid. These goals were added to the aims for KOICA. And these changes are one of the major changes that I'm going to present you about today. For the 30 years, in the first time, I can show you the history of KOICA. There were about 17 billion won of budget, and last year we had more than 18 billion won. And for the ODA, there are about 8 trillion won. And WFK has more than 80,000 people. There are various specific programs related to KOICA, and KOICA was always at the forefront. Now, I'm going to explain about the organization, but since we're out of time, I'm not going to explain it in detail. Now, moving on to the main body, I'm sure everyone is familiar with Sdgs, so apart from academic themes, I'm going to just add on my individual thinkings. The Sdgs was announced, and it changed from the NDGs, and at the time, KOICA was having a shock, and it was really a commemorative change for us. I got into KOICA in 2007, and it was the era of MDGs at the time. And KOICA was dealing with MDGs, but at the time, everything was related to MDGs. That was how the organization was managed. And I thought it was somehow naive for us to think like that. But in 2013, at the United Nations, I watched the presentation of SDGs in the General Assembly. The SDG is comprehensively targeting for economic and cooperation of the global society. And also, there were some concerns related to existential MDGs, and there were also discussions related to ODA. And ODA was centering around the state-led cooperation, so SDGs focused more on civilians and individuals. So SDGs were like an ideal framework for everyone. But I'm sure you're all familiar with the MDGs and SDGs. In many institutions, many experts have some concerns. These comprehensive goals are still a wonder to many people whether it would be fully established and accomplished. Do we have enough resources? And as SDGs encompasses the developing countries as well, we also need to think about the LDCs, and LDCs have become more vulnerable with the establishment of SDGs. So I'm going to explain it in detail for this slide. There were some concerns and problems with MDGs. So under the judgment in the SDGs, we try to prepare it well. So step by step, I'm going to talk about each step. In the first phase, we try to get adapted to these fast-changing frameworks. So KOICA also announced 5 initiatives for the SDGs. At the time, our government also talked about SDGs. So based on each work, there were 4 cases for the government related to SDGs. At the time, about $500 million were announced. And the first initiative was Better Life for Girls, and the second one was Safe Life for All Initiative, and the third one was STI for Better Life Initiative, and the fourth one was Knowledge and Experience Sharing of 생활운동. And also, it was the year of SDGs, but also it was the year of climate. COP21 was held at the time, and countries were racing towards tackling climate change. From 2008 to 2012, KOICA also considered the green growth for the government policies. And we also focused on the EACP program. At the time, the leaders announced the EACP. And it was actually good news for KOICA because beforehand, climate change and environmental issues were considered to be minor business. So waste management and water management, all of these projects were not really highlighted. And after the launch of EACP, it enabled KOICA and government to cooperate with one another. So as we go for carbon net zero and environmental friendly nature, I think it was a good cause for the KOICA to partner with government. It was really an important opportunity for KOICA. So I'm going to talk about the SDGs 5 initiatives and what KOICA did. I think these content are meaningful for KOICA. And among the 5, I'm going to introduce the 3 initiatives. One is Safe Life for All from infectious disease. It is an initiative related to infectious disease. Fortunately, this initiative was really helpful as we are now faced with COVID-19. So although it lacks some completeness, the Safe Life for All from infectious disease are highly related to the COVID-19 crisis nowadays. And if you look at the second one, it's about the climate-compatible development. It was not included in the agenda for government, but it was an initiative that KOICA came up with. So many experts are viewing COVID-19 crisis as a climate risk. So in order to tackle climate risk, KOICA was already preparing for climate tackle issues since a long time ago. And I'm going to explain it later, but the most important part was the accomplishments related to science and technology. Because we were somehow focused in MDGs, it was rather focused on the health and safety. And this science and technology was really meaningful for KOICA. So if you look at this slide, it's related to our accomplishments and outcome. Initiative has to do with strategies and programs. And these programs have committed to our development. But we have to approach it as an outcome-based. And what was really important for us to set the plans for each SDG goals. So we set 10 strategies for each sector. And we try to set these strategies in line with Korea's situation and accomplishment with the ODA at the 2016 background situation and the demand for Korean government at the time. Based on that, we try to set the 10 strategies for the SDGs. The specific indicators of the SDGs were also highly linked to these strategies. It was a good attribution, but still it has some limits. So these were the efforts made by KOICA at the time. So now I will share some cases. I'm going to present about the projects and business done by KOICA and how we have come up with outcome-based approach, or what kind of outcome did we make. The first one is the project related to Vietnam Korean Institute of Science and Technology. This was established right before the establishment of SDG. This shows that KOICA already came up with establishment of 8 projects before the SDG settlement. And as Vietnam and Korea made consensus on science and technology, the business was going smoothly. And at the time, I was the responsible member of this GSIS. So far, in terms of education, Vietnam and Korea partnered in employment and academic learnings. And at the time, Vietnam was shifting away from developing countries to mid-income country. So we realized the importance of practical laborers and experts in Vietnam. And there's another interesting story behind it. Korea got the ODA from the US and created KIST. By explaining these cases, I can show you that the Science and Technology Institute have been launched. And it was a very representative case for the Science and Technology project in 2014. And at the bottom, this is the photo of Koala Technology Park. You can see the building from France and satellite experiment system from Japan. And there's also Korea's National Science Technology Institute. And near this plant, there is also Samsung Electronics nearby. So in 2020, the business was completed. And as a practical project, it will be very promising for the future. And the second case that I would like to explain is one of a specific program from our technology initiative. It is related to the value chain initiatives. we came up with diversified portfolios, and it shows that it is really meaningful for KOICA. We tried to give more innovation to KOICA's project. At the time, with the inauguration of Obama administration, the US was also coming up with innovative initiatives en masse. The international institutions were also aiming for innovation. So KOICA, through this program, was also coming up with innovative groups, innovative companies, and innovative programs. We were trying to aim for innovation, and one of the outcomes was from the ENUMA, the development of KIC School. From 2016, we funded this program, and we also created as a testbed at the Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. If you look at the content, the elementary school students of these 3 countries, we provided tablet PC and various education. And successfully, the literacy was improved, and for the numeracy, it was also improved by 14%. We did this pilot program at the 3 countries, and now we also won at the Global Learning X Prize competition hosted by Tesla, and we have been selected as a major global group. In this slide, I'm going to talk about the challenges. When MDGs was established, when Sdgs was established, we self-evaluated and thought that we have been successful, but we still have some more way to go. So for the past 2 to 3 years, we have been highlighting the outcomes, but there are outcomes that have been realized and that were not. We have to come up with more integrated outcomes. So far, there were innovation in the overall projects, but we also need innovation in the management as well. And we felt like that we were really not going in line with the changes of the ODA backgrounds. So we tried to change our management design and culture. And in terms of strategy, we realized that there were some blind spots as well. The project outcomes and the management strategies of KOICA and the national strategies should all be interlinked with one another and show it and present it to the people, but that was not made. So we realized the importance of national portfolio. And apart from the 10 strategies of the Sdgs, I thought about whether we are missing some kind of strategy. So we added another strategy and updated the overall strategy. So during the delivery process, we also ponder upon ourselves how we can raise our efficiency. So this kind of approach was the hot topic for KOICA. 10 years later, I think the rest of the challenges of the SDGs would all go under the category of climate. So I believe the green ODA should be an independent topic that we need to discuss. There is initiative for climate action, and we reap some outcomes from it. And also, we try to think about how we can cope with COVID-19. Director, I think you only have 3 minutes left, so can you wrap up your presentation? So this part is about the changes in mandate. And we're also newly adopting a national portfolio. And I'm sure that private sectors are already doing these strategies. we do have some shortages in part of portfolio. So based on individual countries and their strategies, we have some shortages, and that is how we can come up with the program for the portfolio. So we need to complete the portfolio, which is one of the challenge for KOICA. So we adopted this portfolio system and evaluated it throughout the year. And last week, we finalized our portfolio program, and we have some achievable outcomes. We realized that the concentration rate of portfolio are in short, and we analyzed the problems of our portfolio, and we concluded that the various agenda were not reflected to each task. And the demand for development have also changed, so we also had to think about how can we deal with this change. And we also added the part about human rights. In particular, Korea and KOICA do not really have a specific strategy for human rights compared to other countries. So we tried to meet the global standard. So from the establishment to the delivery, we tried to come up with human rights advocacy program. There has been some issue related to localization in the US due to COVID-19. We tried to change the delivery system to the civic groups under the COVID-19 situation, and also to the disabled, women, and the elderly who are vulnerable in terms of human rights. We tried to assist them customized to their need. And this is the part of our Green ODA and GCF. And recently, Korea was approved as a group for green climate. In the past, we have been making business with GCF, and now the project has turned into as we partner with GCF. So the most important thing is that we can upgrade our project delivery. Because when you talk about the preconditions, these kind of challenges are really tough indeed. There are various elements for the environment surrounding us. So analyzing financial conditions and other things. And we also need to strengthen our compliance to laws. And we also thought about how we can deal with supply chain issues. Excuse me, can you finalize your presentation for a minute? So as we are under the COVID-19 situation, we launched the ABC program last year, and under the name of Building Trust, government has announced a new plan. So for last year, KOICA has been performing well in the midst of pandemic. And for the budget plans and other business plans, we revised 20% of these plans and prepared a strategy and solutions for COVID-19. Right now, we are focusing on the prevention, but starting from next year, we are going to change it into a more resilient, focused approach. And later, I hope that KOICA can also contribute to the vaccination program for other countries as well in the future. I'll wrap up my speech. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Sadly, we only have a limited amount of time. So if any of you have some question, then you can ask to Director Kim later on. Thank you very much. And now, let's move on to Director Lee Ji-hyun.
EDCF에 관심을 가져주시고 이렇게 발표할 수 있는 기회를 마련해 주셔서 감사드립니다. 저는 EDCF에서 전략 기획하고 그다음에 비전 그리고 포트폴리오 관리, 그리고 유니선 확보,
portfolio
실적
and also the outcome.
담당하고 있습니다. 전략을 저희가 오늘 전략 부분을 다룰 거기 때문에 관련해서 저희가 생각하고 있는 대외 환경을 조금 다룰 예정이고요.
Moving that, I'd like to discuss the environment of the project.
인허하우스 리소스 말하자면 수출입 금이라든지
And there are some risks that we're facing, such as the overseas finance,
컨세셔널 런닝이 어떻게
lending, and the those are the points that I'm going to focus on. And before that, I think I need to explain about the background. I'd like to first discuss about the model of sustainable development goal. In the past, the development was on the human development. However, with the sustainable development goal and with the focus of ESG, there was a network that those are not separated, and we started to believe that those are connected. And there are parts that was ignored in the MDGs, and I'd like to focus on how MDGs changed. Focusing on human development, and rather than just focusing on providing supplies and assistance, the focus changed to the sustainable development goal. However, the biggest challenge is on development. Both advanced or developing countries, we have to focus both on advanced and developing countries. So the characteristics of SDG is that it's diverse and it's comprehensive. In this development, in this environment, in order to have SDGs, I'd like to focus on how we came up with the finance. We are looking in terms of the finance because we're a financial institution. The 3G finance increased rather from 2.5 to 4 trillion won.
그래서
So,
앞으로 그런 양호성 차관을 통해서
through concessional lending, we're going to decrease risk factors and improve profitability so that we can have the risk-adjusted rate of return in the market. I think that is the important role that EDCS should do. So there are some needs or discussions about blended finance. And so we have to look at those different environments or indicators, such as the dangers. So how we can support those and how we can come up with finance so that we can have more finance to the developing countries. In that sense, there are more needs and asking of people for blended finance. And in the blended finance, there are more demands on this. In 2007, there was $15.5 billion, which rose to $135.8 billion, a ninefold increase in 2018. And now we'll look at our ODA as well as the EDCF plan, which increased the volume an average of 6.25% annually. So in 2030, we are thinking to plan to increase the total ODA to twofold. Even in this environment, key performances. So I'd like to discuss about that. The the key operations are divided into project operation and program operation. I think if you think about the bridges, the roads, those are the project operation construction. And we focus on private or policy factors. That would be the program operation. Overall, because of COVID-19 last year, I think there was some distortion in the. However, overall, we believe that annually about 3 trillion won was the amount for commitment and about 1.3 trillion won for disbursement. Now let's look at the EDCF portfolio. You can see that the commitment by region as well as sector, and there are more focuses on Asia. And in the sector, if you look at the chart, you can see the focus on transport, public health, and others. Not only that, we focus on water treatment and energy as well. Through this EDCF operation, what kind of impact does it have? I think it is really difficult to exactly know the impact or effect of it. But we had a discussion with the experts and we got an analysis with the help of them. And we were able to see an increase in export, domestic production, as well as job creation. We have received that analysis. And we were able to have the help. So per $1, we had a $2.6 export and about 130,000 jobs were created. That was the result that we received. The impact of EDCF, considering the characteristic of it, we like to have a way to enter the infrastructure market of our foreign companies. Also was able to help the and accumulate those orders in overseas. From 2015 to 2020, if you look at the orders, we have seen about an increase or participation, about 40 to 80% of SMEs participation. So we have supported the SMEs for the EDCF. And with the EDCF performances, we were able to look at the track record and the MDB consulting project orders were given to the SMEs. More opportunities were given to the SMEs. That's the analysis we made. So that was the impact on the Korean economy. And what kind of impact it had to the developing nations? As you can see in the slide, there was a foundation for the economic growth for the developing countries in terms of infrastructure. Now, this is the EDCF Development Accelerator, and I believe that we contribute to this. This is a graph that I really enjoy, and there are some amount that a country can produce. So if a society focuses on making a living, it only has to focus on consumer goods production. So the overall economy of the developing will have difficulty to grow economically. We support the country and consider the production of the future. If we focus on that capital goods production of the developing nations, and the next time the developing nations production would likely to have more opportunities. And so this is the part that we believe that the EDCF is contributing. And so if the developing countries just choose focus on any that will be following in a vicious cycle of poverty. So we believe that we need to push the developing nations to move from poverty, and we believe that is the role of ODA. And regarding that, we have the EDCF support, and I'd like to look at the impacts, the positive impacts of EDCF, help with the experts. We participate and assist a lot, and I'd like to look at that. If you look at the county of the ODA for developing nations, it's only 5% of South Korea. However, we focus on infrastructure and especially transportation, which was able to decrease poverty rate, increase labor productivity, and increase FDI inflow. And in economic growth, we were able to see an increase of 0.064 percentage points. Now let's look at the next slide. Here, this is, if you think about South Korea, a Gyeongin Expressway, and it's a Hanoi Haiphong Expressway in Vietnam, which was able to increase the cycle of logistics. And it also was able to help a lot of foreign companies, such as Shin-Segae, to enter the Haiphong industrial complex. With this, we were able to have other construction orders by Korean companies. Hospital named Chung-Ang in Vietnam, and we helped the local hospital. And after we did that, more and more people were able to use our outpatient, as well as the increase of the healthcare environment. And this in Laos. So not only did we focus on the prevention of flood damage, we were able to have other beneficial, such as having more tourism and other finalizing small businesses. And with the EDCF support, we were able to have are working on. And considering our previous finance, we were able to shift it to PPP method. And on that, as I've explained previously, we were able to have a risk management method, and we're coming up with ways to contribute to that. And this is about the Solomon Islands construction of hydroelectric power plants. And as you can see, EDCF and other companies have cooperated. And that way, we were able to have the involvement of the private sector. They participated as well. Now, I'd like to shortly discuss about the strategy. And in this COVID-19 situation, we focused on developing nations, and I'd like to re-summarize it here. Last year, we had this $360 million for emergency response program loan, and for other people abroad, we're able to even support after the COVID-19 situation ends. We're likely to increase the support. And not only the developing countries, but also the higher countries. Finance situations are not expected to be good. So depending on the policy of our government, we're going to come up with green, digital, as well as public health EDCF. We're likely to increase the support in that. And green means that we're going to have green in all sectors. And we're going to look at our greenhouse gas emissions and to reduce that. Reduce carbon. Yeah. We're focusing on technology. Depending on the fast pace of digital technology development, we're going to come up with ways how we can accelerate the method to smart city. And in the public health sector, we're going to have the basic volume high, but rather than just focusing on the traditional infrastructure, other ways. And also, we're going to have a PPP project, and as I explained previously, there are various resources that are needed for this, and we're going to integrate that to increase the efficiency. Regarding PPP, depending on the project type, other foreign resources are going to divide the work with other entities so that we can get help from overseas. We're likely to do the finalization of this project. Now I'd like to talk about the partnership strategy of us. There are the institutional cooperation, project cooperation, and financial cooperation. In the case of institutional cooperation, we're going to get help of the EDCF of other countries, and we're also cooperating with KOICA and this. And regarding the project cooperation, we're going to come up with the same project beforehand, and we're going to see how we can distribute the role. That is the focus. And we're going to have a project beforehand with the others. And we're a financial institution, and we believe that result-based lending financing is important. As you can see on the bottom, this is about the loan conversion. So we provide grant money, and when we are successful in that, then that would be beneficial, and it will be a result-based way. And this way we are providing incentives to the receiving nation. So as a financial institution, we focus on global foundation and are working with them. But providing ODA without granting, we hope that more information increases it. And in that sense, the professional ODA receives and focused on strategies and implementation of projects. We believe that the characteristics of each region as other cooperative strategies. As I've explained previously, the Epcs has a issue of complexity, and that is the characteristic of sustainable development goals. And we're thinking how we can contribute to SDGs. And as I've explained previously, we're coming up with strategies for the SDG, and as well as methods to combat climate change. And as a financial institution, we have some limitations. So we're going to focusing on various partnerships in the country, and we're going to come up with ways to make it better. Thank you very much.
네, 팀장님 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much, Director.
사실상 한 3분 정도밖에 남지 않아서
Only have
만약에
3 minutes left.
김 팀장님 그리고 이 팀장님
So, Director Kim, Director E, if you have time, we hope to have a Q&A session after the roundtable. And I believe that a lot of people, whether it was EDCF or KOICA, I think they have a lot of interest regarding the projects and strategies. So if you are available, I hope that you can stay with us. And in the last session, out in the roundtable, I'd like to ask for more discussions of you. And Director Kim, who did not have much time previously, I'd like to ask him to give more opinions afterwards. The first session will be wrapped up now, and afterwards, And first, I'd like to thank all of you for providing wonderful information. I'd like to meet you shortly. Thank you very much. So this is the end of the first session. And our dean would like to convene with us afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your nice presentation on KOICA and Export and Import Bank of Korea. Okay, let's go to second session, our discussion session. So Professor Yong-Sik Ju, are you there? You are the moderator of session 2.
Yes, I'm in. Hello? 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 Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay.
Okay. So in the second session, we have two presenters. The honorary Professor Kim Tae-hyun and the professor from the Shandong University. Professor Kim, I think reading his manuscript, he's supposed to you want to say about some of his philosophy about ODA and EDCF, and I just want to ask him because he's the Myanmar specialist. That's the little bit talk about what's going on in Myanmar and how some Myanmar is managing the education system under the COVID-19. Professor Kim, you there? Professor Kim?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Would you remove the screen that you share? I have to read my presentation from my screen, but I can't go to my screen because of this screen. Oh.
이지연 팀장님 혹은 그 스트리브은행 쪽에서 그 지금 파일을 좀 내려주시기 바랍니다.
지금 수출은행에서 한 거 화면 공유를 하고 있어요. 그게 내 화면을 채우고 있어서
네,
내 화면을 읽을 수가 없어.
이지연 팀장님 지금 자리를 비우신 것 같은데 혹시 호스트에서 이걸 내리실
예, 제가 한번 해보겠습니다.
네네. 공유 중지를 하시면 될 것 같거든요.
Okay. I got it now.
Okay.
Yes.
I still cannot see your file.
I'm here. Do you see me? And do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
But
let me share the discussion paper by Professor Tae-hyun Kim here. So can you see the discussion paper of Professor Kim?
Let me see if I can share. Can I do that from my side?
Okay, yeah. So
too many papers on my screen.
yeah, so I think you can now start. Professor Kim, I think now you can share your paper.
Okay. Hold on just a second. I've been working with a lot of papers simultaneously. So many things on my own screen. All right. Say because of too many screens, too many files to open simultaneously with my Word file, it was shut down. Professor Johnson, can you share my paper now?
Yes, I can do that. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Can you see?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I say two presentations, I learned a lot. Okay. One is done by KOICA for grants, and another one is done by Exim Bank for about EDCF. And I'm not any better informed of the issue than those presenters who are really experts. I do not have anything to add on. Instead, I would like to offer some thoughts or a few words of caution in practicing ODA. My words are drawn from my insights as a scholar of international relations in general and my short experience of practice ODA in Myanmar in terms of education cooperation. Right, as a IR scholar, I would picture it this way. Okay, the dream, the ideal of ODA. The section I named the ODA a utopian dream. Without doubt, generous development aids by developed countries toward developing countries are important and of course valuable, I would say. It may solve the problems of gaps and lacks in worldwide development level, which has been ever widened in the age of hyperglobalization. Watching the scenes of poverty on TV or through media and by myself was really disheartening. Okay, the screen I'm seeing is not where I am. Okay. Yes.
Shall I go further below, lower? I think that is not just, yeah.
Okay, just for me, let me read my screen. I covered it.
Okay.
Development, okay. So, I mean, development assistance, okay, if you think of just poverty and poverty gaps, I think development assistance is far more than that, not just from that kind of humanitarian concerns, however, but also from broader view of international peace and security, which is really in my area. Development, whether it is political, economic, and social, in developing countries will help solve some of, if not all, of internal conflicts, which many of the developing countries are also suffering from. It may reduce income gaps within the country, reduce social and political distances, and promote harmony among people through better communication and transportation, which was made possible through development assistance. Furthermore, development aids may also help foster a sense of affinity between the donor countries and recipient countries. As a former, the donor countries come to understand the problems of the developing countries better, and the latter, the developing countries, may develop a feeling of gratitude toward the donor countries. If this relationship, better understanding and sense of gratitude, is globalized and generalized to the world, our planet Earth will certainly be a much better place to live. I know, of course, this is but a utopian picture, utopian maybe dream, and the reality is far more complex than this utopian picture. By now, we have an endless list of cases where ODA were either abused or misused or simply failed to achieve the goals. Although the ODA community has worked very hard to overcome such pitfalls, the reflective nature of human beings make complete solution of the problems ever elusive. So now I'm gonna offer some words of caveats. let both the donor and the recipient beware. In that regard, I would like to offer a few words of caution from my personal experience and observations. In thinking, teaching, and writing about politics, and international politics which I teach, I cannot but think of human nature. Whether human nature is good or bad is a mystery to the philosophers of the past, of the present, and of the future, let alone the layman in the streets. I have no firm answer to this question as well, but through reading and teaching, I've reached the conclusion that human nature may be closer to being good rather than being bad, or maybe vice versa, but it is far from perfect. That is my conclusion. Human nature is not perfect. I used to say this, that the true of such imperfections are, the first, the trap of hubris in social political life, and second, that of moral hazard in social economic life. Hubris originated from ancient Greek words, originally meant the pleasure of slapping a face of someone in the public. Now it has evolved to mean the arrogant behavior of someone who thinks he or she is superior to others. In the regard, the donor country and officials, sometimes people of donor countries, may fall prey to it. Sometimes it happens because it is really deeply rooted in human nature. I personally observed such behavior of the officials who are otherwise well-intended and well-behaved. Then the recipient country and officials and the people may feel humiliated, and the original goodwill of development assistance is lost, and even rather breed the feeling of anger and resentment. Second, moral hazard refers to the risk that incurs to the donor country and taxpayers of those donor countries when the recipient country thinks that the aids are free and then abuses them while not appreciating them. The risk also may incur to the people of the recipient countries as well, let alone the donor country, if the officials of the recipient turn corrupt, especially in the case of EDCF long-term loan. I mean, while the fund is in my hands, they may think now it is the people, maybe the next generation, who pay them back. There may be some abuses back. And I'm warning that that kind of sense of hubris and sense of moral hazard is very deep in human mind, and sometimes we really do not really recognize them. So I just delivered words of caution. Then still, I would like to offer some better words. Silver lining out of clouds. I have believed that developmental cooperation, together with climate change and infectious diseases like COVID-19, are some of the areas where international cooperation is essential for the common fate of humanity and also possible in the world of nationalisms. Then I really, since last year and so on, I have been deeply disheartened the way that global pandemic of COVID-19 had been handled by national government. That is, it is instead of fostering international cooperation that had bred nationalism around the world. Even the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the parties at Glasgow just the last few weeks ago seems to have been adversely affected by the new nationalism out of those COVID-19 pandemic. So I sincerely hope that people and their political leaders learn lessons from the hard experiences of COVID-19, not just a difficulty in our daily lives, but for the purpose of international cooperation, international peace and security, learn lessons and reflect them in the future, that the way they handle whatever crisis they may come in the future. Thank you very much for your listening. Oh, should I say some more?
Okay, I think second discussant, Dr. Zhao from China is not here yet. Okay, then because Dr. Pandy is here, even though he is the third discussant. So Yong-Sik Ju, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so you are the moderator of session 2.
We're supposed to have, some Miss Zhao. Miss Zhao is not here.
I don't think we have her here yet.
Okay, then we have to skip her. And Dr. Pandy.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, now we will listen to your wisdom.
Well, thank you so much. What a privilege and honor to participate in this important event with so many participants and young people. Greetings to all of you from Kathmandu, Nepal. I just want to have a few points for your consideration. Now, number one, the global pandemic has hit all sectors of our society very hard, number one. Not only economy, but also society, mental health, our overall well-being has been hit very hard. And especially acute is the question of smaller countries, developing countries, countries like us, Nepal, which is sandwiched between two big powers, India and China. Well, we have been hit very hard. Number two, on the economic side, see, this is a country which depends heavily on remittance. A lot of Nepalese workers, students, they are outside and they send remittances back home. You'll be surprised that total GDP of Nepal, 28% is from remittances from our workers and labor, migrant labor that is working in Korea, Malaysia, in the Gulf and other countries. So therefore, this has been hit hard. And if the remittances start falling, then all sectors of the economy will also be badly affected. Third point, tourism. Our economy is also very heavily dependent on tourists who come, climb the mountains, go for trekking, sightseeing, and they spend their dollars. And that is also important to our economy. That also has been hit hard. Of course, the flights closures, all these restrictions over, PCR tests and so forth. So we do not expect large number of tourists to come to our country for mountaineering expeditions anytime soon. That is also going to hit us hard. A little bit, a glimmer of hope is there because, certain flights have reopened, but there is still a long way to go before normalcy returns. We are already seeing the fourth wave in Europe, and this is going to affect tourism as well. So what does that give you? I mean, your remittances are down, your tourism is down, you have a global pandemic, we are now talking about booster shots. So therefore, that is going to be affected. Now, on the question of multilateral assistance, cooperation to us during these pressing times, very unfortunate to say that the support of international donor organizations was not forthcoming. We were getting support from individual countries, from Republic of Korea, from Japan, from India, from our neighbor China, from the United States, from the EU. But where are the multilateral organizations? Now, the United Nations performance was dismal during the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year at this time, we were running short of oxygen supply. There was no oxygen cylinders. We were lacking in ventilators, face masks, hand sanitizers, essential medical supplies. And even in those kind of pressing times, where are the regional organizations? We are a member of a couple of them. We are a member of the United Nations. We were twice member of the United Nations Security Council. We are a founding member of SAARC, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. We are a member of BIMSTEC. We are a member of BBIN. We are observer of so many other regional organizations, and where are they? I think this is the problem in international relations that we saw, that the regional organizations are also heavily dependent on individual country support. And when the country support was not there, these organizations simply fell apart and they were just giving away statements. We don't want to hear statements. We need support, concrete support. And the concrete support was only being given by individual countries. And I mentioned their names just a while ago. So I think this is one of the points that needs serious consideration, that all these organizations, whether it is UN or SAARC or BIMSTEC or BBIN, WTO, and just name all these organizations where we as member states, we have to pay money to run these organizations. All the specialized agencies of UN, we pay as smaller countries also, as members, we pay money to run these organizations. Their support was dismal. It was below average. They gave away suggestions, they gave away statements, but no concrete help was forthcoming. Now, on the question of reform of these organizations, I think we need to be serious, and especially the young generation will have to give stronger voice to the reform of these multilateral international organizations that we are part of. Otherwise, what happens is that, why should we be members of these organizations? Why should we, delve so much attention and so much of our time in these organizations, if it is the member states that are going to be powerful all the time? So we'll forge better relations at a bilateral level, not at a multilateral level. So this is, I think, what we need to highlight. And also, I like to mention that the support from Korea was very forthcoming. We have a large number of Nepalese students, including Ashwini Bhai, who is here, who have studied and and they are our knowledge bridge with Korea. Our bilateral relations is excellent. People of Nepal have very good feelings about people of Korea, and also large number of Korean tourists who visit Nepal. Unfortunately, that has not been there from the COVID because of the pandemic. And also the Incheon airport is now coming up as a hub, as a transit hub between Asia and America. You, as people of Korea, you may not be so aware of it, but if I want to go to San Francisco or Seattle, and any South Asian will now choose Incheon airport. It is coming as a land bridge from Asia to America. I think this needs to be developed, because you can always be a bridge between Asia and America. I think Korea has the potential to be that. So these are my main flagging points, Professor Chu, that number one, our multilateral institutions are not operating as they should be. Number two, our expectations was too high during the pandemic from multilateral organizations, including the specialized agencies of the UN, whether you call it WHO or UNICEF, or name any organization. They are all, including UNESCO, other organizations, they are not performing as per their mandate, because they are heavily dependent on individual country donor support. And the donors use that platform to give bilateral support. For instance, India is the largest member of SAARC, and it committed a lot of money for COVID support to smaller countries in South Asia through the platform of SAARC. But then it gave the support bilaterally. SAARC Secretariat did not give us the financial support. So you see, the problem in these organizations is that they are only there as post offices, and they don't have anything of their own. We have a SAARC disaster center also. Where was this disaster center during our pandemic? Where was this disaster center during our earthquake of 2015? We had a devastating earthquake in 2015. and absolutely no support from SAARC Disaster Center. Whereas we ourselves pay for that, for the upkeep of the center. So you see, the problem, I think, is for us, when we analyze the post-COVID situation, we need to reform these organizations. That is a serious matter for all of us. And as far as bilateral support is concerned, we got a lot of support. We are thankful for it. Now we have to think about post-COVID recovery, whether on the economic side, social side, mental health side, or overall well-being. We have to think about post-COVID situation. Where is our education going to be? Is it all going to be online education? What about our health system? What about travel and tourism? What about remittances? We are talking about, some countries are talking about V-shaped recovery, like Bangladesh. The V, the letter V of the English letter. It fell and then it sprang up again. The Bangladesh economy has really done well. But some countries are now talking about K-shaped recovery. The letter K. That means the rich are going to get richer. The poor are going to get poorer in post-COVID economy. K-shaped recovery. So therefore, I think we have to talk about post-COVID situation. We have to talk about what support that individual countries can do for us, smaller countries, and about the overall dynamics of education in our societies. Professor Sun and Professor Yong and all of you, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll be very happy to answer comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also, you raised a lot of the important questions. We're going to discuss it at the next session. So thank you very much. And it was very instructive and very interesting. It's remarkable wisdom. Thank you very much. I think that Dr. Zhao from China, just to get in here.
Yes, but I saw that I was in panel 2 or somehow. Yeah, but I've got my presentation ready.
Can you share your idea with us?
Yes, sorry, because I saw there's another 1 hour for me, so I didn't really have those camera ready. Sorry about that. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry. Hi. My name is Yuzha Zhao. I'm from Shandong University. My presentation topic today is data flow, a cross-border data flow, and well, can I share my screen with you? Let's see. You see it? Right. Well, this is based on the research I've recently done, and it starts from a very interesting phenomenon. I examined 18 countries to investigate their policies on cross-border data flow. Cross-border data flow means like, when we are doing this meeting, we are exchanging data, right? So different countries have their different policies for those data to exchange across the borders. And as you can see from this picture, the level of restrictions are different, and it's very different. For example, if you can see from here, here is China, the highest one. The China is basically the country with the most restrict policies on cross-border data flow. And it's followed by India, Russia, and Indonesia. And we can also see others like Canada, Japan here, and the USA. Well, they are the ones at the other side of the axis. You can take all these different level of restrictions on a continuum. So they are at the other side, the other end of it. So basically, some countries here adopt free cross-border data flow policies, and some other countries adopt more strict policies to regulate the cross-border data. And my research is trying to find out why. So it's from the theoretical level, we can understand this cross-border data flow as the way, or as a potential challenge to the current structural powers. This concept from Susan Strange, and she indicates that the structural power is the power that you do not have to perform, but the one that will show up when you exist. For example, in 2008, when the Wall Street financial crisis, all those financial sectors, the financial corporations about to bankrupt, but the USA the USA government has to bail them out, because otherwise the entire financial system will collapse. So this is why we call them has this structural power in financial sectors, because the exist itself is the power. But in this, back to our topic, so basically states are usually, or normally, or traditionally, the major provider of security, and they enjoy the dominance of the structure of power at this dimension. So they are the protectors. States are the one who provide these security services. But something changed in digital age. States are no longer the major protectors, because the data are stored or being protected by those digital companies or this technical services. States, sometimes they even need to be protected. Those digital platform corporations like Facebook, Twitter, Alibaba, for example, they are responsible for managing and protecting the huge amount of data. So in that way, data change or data, if the data can flow overseas, then the situation got even worse, right? So data flow challenge this traditional or this old structural pattern, and the same thing happened in financial dimension. So I would, for the time concern, so I would just skip this part quickly. But the point here is states naturally tend to be conservative in this data flow cross-border, because you will challenge, or even it's happening right now. So it has made some differences to these power distributions. So states naturally like to be protective, to maintain their current structural power. The market is somehow different. Market naturally prefers free data flow because, well, first of all, for the first point, like states now do not dominate this structural power in the production dimensions, because it's now mostly market economy. The state do not regulate the market as much as in older times, right? So the market decide the power distribution. But in the digital time, the digital age, the data owners, they are the ones enjoying more power. They can, like the producer, retailers, large companies, they all would like to accumulate data, because that would produce values. Even for small countries, even for small companies, they would like to have this free data flow because that's how they can access to large amount of data. So market naturally prefer free data flow. But so in general, this policy differences is a result of this bargaining process between the state and the market. The stronger the bargaining power the market is, well, if we say the market, mostly we're talking about the US digital companies because they are huge. They take more than 60% of the entire digital platform or digital market. So they are the one who has the bargaining power. So the stronger the bargaining power of the market, we say the power in that particular country is the less restrictions of the country's cross-border data. But the stronger the state's decision-making independence is, the more restrictions on cross-border data flow. So that's the general rule of these policy differences. So I will argue that this difference is reasonable. It is, but it's not beneficial. Well, for example, in Northeast Asia, China, South Korea, Japan, they adopt different policy to regulate this border data flow. You can see from here, this graph, China is highly restricted on this cross-border data flow in these 5 areas like public service, medical care, financial bank, business data, and personal data. So China require localizations of the data in all 5 areas. But Japan would not require any localization policy. So data do not have to be stored locally. But in some conditions, so this condition is not that restricted, as long as this data flow can, meet some basic requirements such as mutual concern or these legal regulations, the data can flow across the board. South Korea is in the middle. There's no localization requirement in business data, not in personal data area, but there are some localization requirements for the finance and the bank area, for medical care, and some public services. So these differences will have some negative consequences because, first of all, data flow is vital to the digital economy. Well, the digital economy, we take this is called digital because it's built based on data. And when we talk about economy is always about flow, right? Data flow is very important to digital economy development. And for now, for our area, for these years, especially during the pandemics of the COVID-19, the importance of digital data to the global economy is increasingly important. There's some data here. This is from the, I think it's called the Global Digital Economy White Paper, has been issued by a Chinese research institution. They examined 47 countries' economic growth. So from their research result, they found that all these 47 countries, the average of their GDP growth in 2020 has been decreased by 2.8%. But at the meantime, their digital economy growth increased by 3%. So we can predict for some strong reasons that digital economy will be an important proportion of the entire economy. So in these tendencies, these barriers of data flow will cause negative and very sadly, probably serious negative consequences at regional level, because it will stop this regional economic cooperation, to develop further. It is really important. The current situation is that the barrier is, and we can see, we can witness all the barriers. And we did not see a very bright future for the data corporation. The data corporation is important because on one side it will help to further upgrading the regional supply chain, which we are talking about these days, taking them seriously, and that will also help us to recover from the great pandemic. So cooperation is important, and how we can help promote the corporations. Well, I didn't see a lot ways, because somehow it depends on how Chinese government feel safe about their data securities. But ITC development certainly is important, and there's some further steps for the Chinese government on this legislation branch to further enhance and to detail all these data regulations. This probably, I'm just guessing and proposing, a multilateral data institution will be helpful if we can take this data institution under a multilateral framework. So it will provide the sovereignty, security, meanwhile, we can ensure this data flow across border that could help this data or this economy recover. Okay, that is my sharing, and thank you very much. Sorry. I can't hear.
Okay, Dr. Zhao, thank you very
Yes.
much for your very enlightening
Very
discussion.
nice
So
comment.
Yong-Sik Ju will be continue his moderation for session 3.
Okay, thank you very much. And next one, now we'll take we turn to the Southeast Asia and listen to Southeast Asians' perspective on see what's going on there. I think the Professor Pong Mai here.
Yes, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you ready to go? Okay, please.
Okay. So distinguished scholars and participants, it's my honor to be here today to attend the event, and I would like to share a little bit about my thoughts on the issues of international development and cooperation. Particularly, we also share our thoughts about the post-pandemic period. So let me start with looking back at the past of one of the issues related to the economic development cooperation fund from South Korea to Vietnam, and highlight some of the challenges we faced, and particularly during the COVID-19 era. So okay, let me start the slide here. So my talk is okay. Some of my thoughts about the issues of ODA to Vietnam, and with a focus on the EGCF, some results and shortcomings that I found from the cooperation with South Korea and Vietnam. And let me start with a little bit about our achievements. When we received the support in cooperation with other countries in Asia, particularly from our OTA donors. So here in this slide, I would like to highlight some of our achievements since the early of 2000 until 2022. I think that thanks to the ODA donors to Vietnam, that we have like a big support to develop our economy, so that we can achieve some of the results here, like reduce the poverty rate, and also some of the social achievements in terms of life expectancy and infant mortality. So what I would like to say is that ODA plays an important role in economic development and hunger eradication in Vietnam, and we receive the support from our counterparts in Asia, particularly from Japan. And currently, South Korea is the second largest ODA donor to Vietnam. And thanks to the support and the close cooperation with South Korea and other partners in Asia, we achieved the average growth rate of more than 6.4% per year during the economic renovation for more than 20 years. I think that this is one of the biggest achievements that we have, and particularly from our cooperation with South Korea, I think that we have a lot of support, and the ODA disbursement in Vietnam increased very quickly, particularly since 2009 and until now. And more importantly, we have the Edcf bilateral loans and all of the like a lot of investments, and the funds from Edcf have been used particularly in areas of economic development and infrastructure, so that it serves as the foundation for our economic development. And until 2027, we have the disbursements of Edcf up to 2.7 billion USD. I think that we have been successful in receiving the Edcf from South Korea and invest in our infrastructure to serve as a foundation for development. And more importantly, if we look into the structure of Edcf fund in Vietnam, mostly of the project is in the infrastructure area. And from this chart, I would like to highlight that we still have a little investment in industrial sector and energy and agriculture, just a small part, and which highlights the potential areas for cooperation in the future. And in terms of education and training, and I think that we have received the sponsor and donors from South Korea, and we have achievements in this area. But compared to other areas, I think that education and training is still a small part that receives the corporate that show the cooperation between the two countries. Okay, let me very quickly go through some of the projects that we think they are successful when we receive the Edcf from South Korea, like the solar power project in Quảng Bình province, which has a great impact for the people in the rural areas. And another project in Long Sơn City and Dang province also is very important for the citizens in this city. And then we have another project in Quảng Nam, receiving Edcf. In education, we have one big project in Da Nang City. This is the College of Information Technology that receives Edcf from South Korea. To sum up, I would like to say that we have a close relationship and a lot of support from South Korea from Edcf, and there are some results in the project as I mentioned earlier. And from my observation, I think that the key to success in previous cooperation between Vietnam and South Korea, including the adjustment of the charges of Vietnamese government when we receive and collaborate with South Korea in terms of the ECS, and also we try to use the PPP mechanism to facilitate the private sector in receiving and execute and use the funds from donors. And the transparency of South Korea's partners is also one of the key factors that lead to the success of projects in Vietnam. However, we identify that there are some shortcomings in the way we use the development funds, like some of the delays in the implementation phase, and also the bureaucracies of the local government authorities, which can be considered as one of the hinders for the success of the use of the development funds. As we can see that the context of COVID-19, the pandemic is the focus of our discussion for cooperation in the future. So I would like to mention some of the challenges that we think Vietnam is facing, and also it will be like the thing we need to discuss for how to adjust our areas of cooperation in the future. So as you know that during COVID-19, Vietnam is one of a few countries that we still have the positive GDP growth in 2020. But in 2021, I think that we are now heavily hit by COVID-19 with a lot of positive cases in these recent months. And what I would like to highlight here is COVID-19 is actually making the challenges for our country more severe. Prior to COVID-19, in our economy and the situation of our country, actually we have problems when we think about economic development issues. And some of the challenges we have here, including our population is rapidly aging, the environmental issues, and also climate change. They are some of our problems. And when COVID-19 came, I think that our challenge seems to be more severe. And particularly the service sector is heavily hit by the pandemic, and also tourism. We are losing more than 1 billion per month due to COVID-19. And I think that this is one of our big challenge for economic growth. And in addition, in the pandemic era, the FDI, one of the important source of investment in our country, also decreased suddenly, and which means that we face a lot of problems post COVID-19, and that will be, I think, a point to discuss how the international and regional corporations should be when we think about the situation of post-COVID-19. And here, for the last of my sharing, I would like to show the estimations of our GDP growth in 2021 and 2022, which seem to be like a positive side for our economy. But the issues of how cooperation with other countries in the region and how in the areas for cooperation is still a big question for us. And my thoughts here is based on our past success in cooperation with Asian countries, particularly South Korea. I think that we have a strong foundation to talk more about and discuss the areas for cooperation in the future. But how it will be how the cooperation activities and areas for cooperation will be of more discussion. So that's all about my sharing. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Mai, for your in-depth and very succinct the analysis of Korea and Vietnamese the Edcf project. We're having some more discussions at the level of session, I think. Now it's let's take a turn to the Cambodia. Mr. Sogan Tarapi here? Mr. Tarapi? Are you here?
I don't think he's here. So first, shall we go to the last discussant, and then let's see whether Mr. Pandey will be here later.
Professor Chun.
Yeah.
Chun Woo-hyung, can you ready to make a presentation and show your great idea with us? Professor Chun, you here? No? Professor Chun? He is not here, I guess.
Okay, while waiting for Professor Chun Woo-hyung return, I have put some questions, so could you take care of the questions on chatting Chung? I think from the chatting Chung, I think Mr. Kim from KOICA and Mrs. Ijeon 팀장님 from Korea Export-Import Bank would like to add some comments on Professor Fung's presentation in order to more elaborate on the information, right?
Yes.
Sure. Yes, so as a former deputy country director in Vietnam, so I would like to amend some example presented by Professor Phung Mai Nguyen. So some examples are KOICA's project in the sector of healthcare and education. So Central General Hospital in Guangnam and information technology college in Da Nang City. So I think so. You usually use some best examples of Korea's ODA, yes, including EDCF and KOICA's project, I think. Yes, we know, so loan project and grant project.
Okay. Dr. Pandey, any response to?
Can you kindly repeat the comment, please?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you kindly repeat the comment, please?
Yes, Mr. Lee, can you repeat your question again?
For me? Sure. So I think, yeah, so so mainly the objective, so I think the objective of loan and grant project could be the same, yeah. For sustainable development goals, or friendship between two countries. But I think the delivering system are very different. So for grant project is so we usually Korean government usually comprehensive or their strategy with the recipient countries, such as the country partnership strategy, and also so in the umbrella of policies, we usually delivering the grant of programs and the loan programs. So, but the one of the different points are that grant is just not refund, not repaid to the Korean government, but grant is just freely delivered by the Korean government as a taxpayers.
Well, thank you so much. But I think as far as Korean grant assistance are concerned, in my country, they are taken very positively by the people. And the government of Korea has made some hospitals. They have renovated our schools, libraries post earthquake, and they are taken very positively, whether in the form of grants or loans. I think the problem here is that now we are graduating from a least developed country to a middle income country, and that brings forth a lot of problems, because certain countries like the United States, EU, they will not give us preferential treatment because we are no longer the poorest of the poor. And that creates an uneven path, an uneven playing field for a country like Nepal, just coming out of COVID, just coming out of the devastating earthquake. And I think Korea does not really care about whether you are a developed country or developing country as far as receiving country is concerned. So we are really hopeful that your grants and support and assistance will continue, whether through the AGs of KOICA or through other agencies and organizations. I think these are very important to us. Thank you.
Okay. So I think Professor Chung just getting in, right? Professor Chung?
Yep.
Yes, I can read to make a presentation.
Is this my turn to speak my presentation now?
Yes, yes.
Really? I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, I'm Woo Hyung-Chun, who was just introduced by Professor Ju. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm working at the Research Center for Reconciliation and Coexistence in Contact Zones, and also working at GSIS as Global Border Studies in Chung-Ang University. Not much, but I have listened to and learned from many presentations and discussions about international development and cooperation in the pandemic era discussed today. First, I need to say about COVID-19, which does not go away easily, is also a problem. But this pandemic is even more problem problem in that places that need development are not being developed, or barriers are rising between countries that need cooperation. I think this is why discussions like today need to be more diverse and accelerating. As I study borders and border areas, I have 3 thoughts on today's topic. First, we should refrain from development and cooperation from the top down by the government. There are many advantages to being led by the government, but there are also disadvantages that are easy to be shaken by relations between countries. Second, we don't need to focus on political issues. This will not be easy, but for contacting when cooperation, we need to find other contact points. Third, for this reason, development and cooperation must research the commons of both or among countries, such as history and culture. In this pandemic era, when everything has stopped, this dangerous pandemic may be an opportunity to reset these points back to the origin of development and cooperation. Today, I will try to talk about art and ecology and tourism as a commons for development and cooperation, mainly focusing on cooperation. My talk has three aims. The first is to systematize changes in the landscape of the border area in terms of art, ecology, and tourism. And the second is to establish the cross-border landscape study constructed in this way as a convergence and challenging study of the humanities. And lastly, by using these research, we would like to develop a model for cross-border cooperation and suggest the policies. The border area has always been a distant space or time from us. The border areas, which many people have thought of as if they belonged beyond the borders and as if they were subordinated to the past. But the border shared their daily life with us, and the pace of change is also rapid. Moreover, the border closed due to the pandemic is also a symbol of vaccine nationalism, and quarantine isolationism. But it is being recognized again as a bridgehead for cooperation between countries. Therefore, today's talk is not only a way to break through the crisis caused by the pandemic, but also the first gateway to practice trans-border cooperation in the post-pandemic era. The new normal triggered by the climate crisis and the pandemic is not a temporary phenomenon, but an event that radically changes our lives and thinkings. This pandemic caused by COVID-19 especially shows how much we have stood precariously alone on our borders. In particular, it is necessary to recognize borders as trans-border communities that will enable solidarity and cooperation between the two sides, not simply objects to be controlled. I will talk about the possibility of cooperations as art, ecology, and tourism cooperation in tourism in inner Koreas. We will look at the art hotel that appeared in Goseong in May 2021. The hotel was built for about half a year since October 2020 through the Gangwon Cultural Foundation's DMG Culture and Arts project. Our remaker reconstructed 2 buildings of DMZ Beach House in Gosong, and we reconstructed each 2-story accommodation facility as a cultural and artistic space along with the accommodations. It is interesting that Gosong, where this art hotel is located, Gosong is located on the north end border of the east coast, and therefore the space that was used mainly to comfort the sons and the friends who have gone to military service in the forefront has begun to welcome new visitors. In other words, it can be seen that this art hotel was built as a base for a new border landscape, as a platform that allows visitors to visit these places for the purpose of viewing exhibitions, regardless of a military basis. And from September 1st to November 15th this year, the Inter-Korean Immigration Office in Paju had the DMZ Art and Peace Platform exhibitions. The contents of this exhibition are interesting, but the place where the exhibition was held is even more interesting. The South-North Immigration Office, which was created with the entrance to the Kaesong Industrial Complex as an opportunity, was recently remodeled into an exhibition space called Unimaru, as its utilization decreased after the Kaesong Industrial Complex was closed. The location of the exhibition space is partly in South Korea, partly under UN jurisdiction, and partly in the DMZ. The work was also exhibited at the nearby Dorasan station, where it was written that it was the first station going to north, not the last station in the South Korea. Next, ecology borderscapes. Cross-border cooperation and efforts are required to overcome environmental and social problems that transcend national borders, such as responding to the climate crisis and the current epidemic. In particular, environmental cooperation for climate technology exchange in the north-south border region can be promoted in the near future, depending on the humanitarian dimension and non-political issues. And it is expected that it will serve as a platform for the establishment of peace on the Korean Peninsula. From the regional point of view, efforts and cooperation are required to create an ecological community on the Korean Peninsula for the sustainable use of natural resources and promotion of biodiversity, such as restoration of damaged forest ecosystems and protection of wetlands. At the same time, it is necessary to create an ecological community on the Korean Peninsula that considers not only the needs of the present generation, but also future generations. And cooperation is necessary in consideration of the limitations on the of the ecosystem's self-cleaning ability and resilience. In addition, in the context of active discussions on the Korean versions of the Green New Deal, which aims to transition to a low-carbon economy for sustainable development and the response to the climate crisis, prepare a plan to respond to the climate crisis on the Korean Peninsula through inter-Korean ecology and landscape cooperation need to be. Many NGOs are working on this cooperation, but as you can see on the picture of the screen, the Hans Zayde Foundation from Germany brings people to the border through various events with the discussions for cooperation. Next will be tourism Borderscape. If we can open the door for inter-Korean exchanges in the tourism sector, which is relatively less subject to sanctions against North Korea, we can lay the groundwork for the broader corporations. In particular, it is possible to prepare a starting point for inter-Korean understanding of the project by examining the common historical conditions in which modern tourism appeared in the inter-Korean border, going back to the time before the inter-Korean conflict. It is necessary to consider the form of sustainable tourism in the north-south border area, where the natural environment and the historical heritage are relatively well preserved. It is necessary to explore the possibility of developing new tourism products, such as trying to communicate the past and present in a way that follows the journey by discovering past travel experiences. The expected expected effect of this approach can be summarized as on the screen, creating a foundation for cooperation on the Korean Peninsula through non-political issues, discovering long-term cooperative projects that can cooperate with the international community, efforts to respond to the global issue of climate crisis and sustainable development, raise awareness for the spread of the Green New Deal on the Korean Peninsula. I hope we can achieve more than this, but more than this, and I used a lot of time, so we'll close my discussion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Chung. And we now have the Cambodian, the scholar here, and we're listening to what's going on in Cambodia. Mr. Sukandarapi, you there?
Yes, thank you. And once again, apologize for the lateness because I was misunderstanding about the timing. Sorry, really sorry. Yes.
You Khmer or Mexican?
Really?
What?
Yeah, we have a very hectic week today. This week, that's why I was really not into the follow up with the seminar here. But yeah, really sorry, but I'm delighted to join the seminar and also listen to the experience from both Korea and Asia countries. Let me share shortly how the pandemic is going in Cambodia and how usual business, and especially regarding the international development aid. So Cambodia has been hit by the wave of COVID-19 pandemic a little bit late from other country in the region. So we have our first case on March 2020, but which was our imported case. However, we have the community outbreak very recently on February 2021. However, the economic and social impact in Cambodia is has been started since early 2020, especially business in services and also especially tourism, and also some export-oriented industry as well, because many countries in Europe and the US also has impact from the pandemic, so that the market shifted a little bit. So in order to mitigate the crisis, the government started to launch some restructure program, especially to build infrastructures for economic center targets. One is Sihanoukville, which situated in the coastal area in the southeast of the country. So we enhance infrastructure in order to prepare for the reopening of the economy. And also the government also launch another restructuring program campaign in Siem Reap province, which is the economic center for tourism. So right now there are the construction of the physical infrastructure, especially roads, ongoing in the two provinces. And also till now, the infection case has dropped and the government have lifted many restrictions. So I can say since 1st of November, the restriction and administrative regulation has been released, lifted, except wearing masks and limited the social distancing. Yes. So this is basically what the situation is like since 2020 and right now. Let me say a little bit about the AIDS. I think many projects, especially the construction infrastructure and physical project is not quite disrupted by the pandemic. However, because the many ODA touch upon sectors such as education or vocational training, that has a lot of disruption because when the hit of the wave pandemic arrived in Cambodia specifically, we don't have existing model such as online platform or distance learning in place yet, especially for people who live in rural area. They cannot transform and adapt very quickly, but through time we have tried to transform the way of working. So even the public administration also right now we try to enhance online and digital administration tradition culture. However, it's still a process of learning because the education gap is still quite big in Cambodia. And one last thing, let me express my sincere thanks because I know that the government of Korea also have provided aids regarding the pandemic, combating pandemic to Cambodia, especially by allowing, importing the rapid antigen rapid test from Korea, because we have used a lot of rapid tests for screening in many places, and that has helped us a lot in curtailing the community outbreak recently, because we cannot depends on PCR testing because we have only two laboratories. So the rapid antigen test help us a lot in containing the small community outbreak recently. So thank you once again, and apologize for the lateness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suwandarapi. Okay, I think that some all the presentations is over, and I really appreciate your great ideas to share with us. And we want to get into the wrap-up session discussion. So, Professor Chung-Ang, you're supposed to lead the wrap-up session, right?
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Chu, and also thank you very much for all the presentation today. Actually, I learned a lot, not only from the KOICA and the EDCF, as well as Nepal and Vietnam and Cambodia as well. So such a huge, important country from the Korean ODA policy and ODA coordinated program as well. So that's why I'd like to actually ask several questions, not several, actually very fundamental question to the KOICA and the EDCF regarding this situation changes since Dr. Padre from the Nepal actually brought a very important issue regarding the changing the country status from the LDC, the least developed country, toward the low-income country and the middle-income country. In that case, obviously, KOICA and the EDCF definitely need to prepare those types of graduation for the LDC to the middle or the low-income country. So I actually asked to the director Kim Min-jung and also the director the Lee Ji-yeon regarding the changing or the transitional position from the LDC to the low-income country or the middle-income country. In that case, how to respond the KOICA with the grant situation, as well as how to respond from the EDCF to the least developed country to the middle income country or the low income country with the loan situation, loan status. So could you please just explain a little bit about this transitional period from the KOICA and the EDCF? I think that is in order. Could you please do this?
Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Yes, for the last 30 years, KOICA's top recipient partner is not Vietnam, but Afghanistan. Yeah, so yeah, as a grant agency, we take an effort to assist the vulnerable countries in the disaster like war and any conflict situation. So additionally, KOICA has supported the great transformation from the former Soviet countries, to the democratic and market-oriented countries in Asia and Southeast and Central Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Uzbekistan, Mongolia. So many we supported to recover basic service from partners government in the sector of health and education, and also exchange knowledge and know-how, sharing with our development experience, for transformation. But recently, so Korean government has two strategy for partner countries. The first one is partnership with the core countries in now 26 countries on list. The other is a partnership with the vulnerable countries. So in this principle, KOICA tried to allocate 70% of all budgets to the first group. 30% is funded to the vulnerable countries. So actually, to make up for these two strategies, so we launched and conducted the SDP Nexus, humanitarian development peace nexus. So we try to discover the combination of these areas in the sector of development and humanitarian, and for LDC and other countries. Yeah, sure, that's right.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then the Lee Ji-yeon, the director Lee Ji-yeon, could you please explain a little bit more about the loan status, about the graduation from the LDC to the low middle income country?
Yes. Actually, I think that the problem of the current development work is the problem actually is the kind of some disproportional distribution of wealth and then poverty as well. The most vulnerable people hit hard harder than the usual people. And then in this sense, we think that the EDCF probably we need to focus on the thing that kind of proportionally distributed. I think that is that is kind of some the sector that is the proportionally distributed is the infrastructure. So it doesn't select people the most were better benefited from that. If once, for example, once the bridge is constructed, and then the people around the infrastructure can be benefited from that infrastructure. So regardless of the kind of wealth status of the least or the better off countries like Vietnam, we don't think the main sector or the main theme, especially under that kind of COVID situation, it has huge influence on both to the least or underdeveloped or the better off countries. And then we do not think that kind of we concentrate our support to some sector or some the specific group, income group countries, I think. So so we what we essentially pursue is that the kind of the lowering transaction cost of entire economy through the through the construction of the infrastructure that has huge influence on more people, and then it can activate the economic the sectors, the economies, activate economy in many ways, in many sectors, and then it can create kind of decent jobs. And then decent jobs, and it really help people, the normal people, they can be lifted from the extreme poverty. Sure. And so we EDCF usually try to kind of create kind of some vicious circles for a country, whether the country is underdeveloped or least developed. That is the one point. And the second one, the loan support is very important. Is that I think loan does not flow. Loan itself actually, the technology, some managing capacity or some design skill can be embedded in the incorporated into the physical infrastructure. And so while the loan flows to the from the developed country to the developing country, the know-how, the skills, cutting-edge technologies can be transferred as well. And so it really helped to enable the people in developing countries to accumulate experience and then enhance their capacity to how to deal with the budgets, how to kind of hire consultants, how to manage the entire projects, and then how to come up with that kind of some plans to help their people. So the loan, it's because of the nature of loan process and the cycle. The EDCF just must assist at every stages of the loan cycle. However, the ownership, the project is actually owned by the developing countries government, and then it really enable the people in the developing country to deal with the very huge project infrastructure. So capacity is very important, and it can be achieved through kind of dealing with some loans. And thirdly, Professor Chung, you mentioned the Vietnam. They are already very belong to as a better off country, and then we now consider kind of some phase down of Edcf loan. Because as I explained earlier, we have another arms actually in the bank. Under the bank's arm, we have Edcf arm, the public loan, and then another function is the ECA function, the export credit as an export credit agency, and we can have various programs to address the private sector. Actually, whether it is the investment in the developing country or some PFs and many others. So for the countries like Vietnam, and we are now it's the time to think about the phase out and graduate from the ODA loan recipients, and then I think they are capable of dealing with some private sector management as well, private sector loans, and so that's just my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, graduation from this ODA is one of the fundamental purpose to actually provide the ODA. That is fundamental one. That's why I actually asked the EDCF and as well as the KOICA about the dealing with this graduation situation. So if we have a much more graduation at the graduating country in this ODA policy, that could be the one indicator that the Korean ODA policy is very much successful. So we hope that we do actually have a more graduating country in the near future. So that is going to be the successful indicator. Okay. Hold on. Also, so I'd like to actually ask the participant regarding some comment from the Professor Taehyung Kim. So could you please add a little bit about your comment on this whole discussion and the presentation? Professor Kim, we cannot hear you. Could you just do your microphone? Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, related to my comment before, I was very curious to not just a KOICA for grant, but in terms of EDCF, this is a loan. What is the kind of return rates of the loan? I mean, there is a kind of risk when you make a loan to the least developed countries, right?
Sure.
I mean, I know that the loan is a very profitable terms, but there may be some kind of defaulting on those kind of returning and so on. What is the general return rates to our Exim Bank? I ask you take the question to Director E of Exim.
Yes.
Yes, we are very proud of providing very concessional loans to our partner countries actually, and the term ranges from 0.015% to 2.5% actually. However, the 80% of our recipients, they enjoy very preferential terms. It actually 0.15% to under 1%. And the term period, the loan period is about 30 years to 45 years, including 10 to 15 grace period. So nowadays, as you all were aware of that, the loan statistics, the reporting system is changing actually. So now the only grant equivalent can be booked as a ODA of a country. So if we see that, if we see our support adopting that loan equivalent basis, and then it is about 80%. Is 80% of 80% of not 80%. So it almost reached 80%. It means that the loan, even though it takes the form of concessional lending, however, it is quite 80% to 100% is. Sure. I think it's doesn't have big differences. I think.
Actually, very much preferable for the concessional loan, right?
Right.
In case of the South Korean the ODA, yeah, that's true. So could you please, Professor Kim actually continues your commentary on the whole presentation and our own discussion.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned at the last moment of my presentation, also when I'm listening to the presentation from Nepal, it really my worry was true. That is the way that the international community or international society has responded to a pandemic, outbreak pandemic, through nationalistic responses rather than international responses, through national government rather than international organizations, was kind of really disappointing. What is hurting for me, you know. I mean, as an in the field of international relations, I was always worried about the return of power politics, and return to the state of war, while still hoping to live in a state of peace, and the strategic rivalry between great powers, and how it would affect the dreamed world, utopian world of ODA, where nations are cooperating to improve the quality of lives around the world. And the spirit, cooperation, and harmony prevailed over all the transnational relations. That utopia is fading away, really negatively affected by the rise of pandemic. So I don't feel very well about this, really.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I totally agree on that. This is very worrisome about all the situation. So that's why we try to actually raise more hope for not only to the KOICA but also to the EDF to create much more preferable environment to the developing country. Not only the developed country but also developing country pretty much will enjoy this much more the cooperative and the collaborative the effort between the among countries. Maybe they tried the partnership, global partnership. This is going to be one of the fundamental actually effort, not only to the donor country but also the developing country as well.
So I mean, those people, officials from KOICA and Edcf,
yes,
really working like diplomats, working in the front line. To combat that kind of nationalism in the spirit of internationalism and cooperation. So I appreciate the works by like Mr. Kim Min-jung. And you guys are diplomats, but not like a diplomat from MOFA, who is okay work for advanced countries like United States and Paris. And so you always work in the developing countries in adverse living conditions, right? So I really appreciate it. When I mentioned caution about the possibility of hubris, that is, don't take it too serious. But anyway, that is one possibility that may be detrimental in the promotion or fostering the spirit of international cooperation embedded in the development assistance and so on. That is what
that's true.
It may hurt, even though you guys are working very hard in that adverse conditions, a small thing may hurt. That is my worry.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally understandable. So maybe that's why not only KOICA but also EDCF, you are actually front line of the public diplomacy in some sense. So that is my firmly belief that you actually promote much more the public diplomatic strategy in much more soft way, not just a hard way. And then the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, like the Professor Kim actually mentioned, right? So we try to actually find a much more better way, much more the soft way to help and cooperate with each other, with the recipient country as well, right? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, let's see this one. We do actually have several very important comment and the question on our chatting window. And okay, so from the, let me check. Dr. Pandey, yes. Dr. Pandey, could you actually the comment or add some comment regarding this whole presentation as well as our discussion on this, please?
Thank you. No, I think I completely missed the point that Republic of Korea is also observer of SAARC. And you know, SAARC has been a very slow organization. We all know that. Some people even say that it is in deep state of coma, but we have to wake it up and resurrect this organization. Because it is the only regional organization in South Asia where India and Pakistan are members. It is a very vital organization. And as Korea is the observer of this organization, and since you are a member of so many other regional organizations, probably you could share experiences of your support to, you know, ASEAN and other organizations. And probably you could also support the track 2 of South Asia, think tanks, networks, for network building. I think that is very important for us, for SAARC as a whole. And Kathmandu is the location for the SAARC Secretariat. We have the capacity to become the Brussels of South Asia. So I think we need your support. I think KOICA should do something with SAARC also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Also, the Mr. Ashwini. Sorry, Ashwini. Sorry about my mispronunciation on your name. Sorry about it. So could you please actually add a little bit of a comment or the question on this whole situation, please?
Thank you. It's Ashwini. It's
Ashwini,
my name.
okay.
It's even difficult in Nepal language, so it's not your fault. And I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation. You know, I'm a student and gradually gaining more experience to understand how this works. And I agree most of the part with, not only because we are from same country, but what Professor Dr. Pandey has raised. It was my concern. And if you look at the chat box, I put one question and it was quietly answered by the professor from ECGIM and also from KOICA. I got some answer. And the point is that, you know, when some countries like Nepal, they need more help, and this ODA and this kind of concept is for those countries who are in the lower part of the hierarchical order and they need more assistance. But again, my concern was that is there again within those countries there is a power play, like power politics. Those countries are needing help because of the all power politics, and within those countries, if there is a power politics like Professor Kim mentioned, it will be more tough in this pandemic situation for those countries to come up and do whatever they want to do. So that's the concern. And like Professor Pandey just already said, that there should be a reformation of how those institutions, multilateral institutions works. They go and act. It's not only by talking, but they should show that, especially in this kind of period when pandemic is hard, countries like Nepal, who are already in poor state and they are even like hit it hard. So that should be the big concern. And overall, I thoroughly enjoyed, and let's see, like maybe Korea will further come up and be more involved in the SAARC, like Professor Pandey said. And it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, Dr. Phong Mai, Could you actually add a little bit more about this comment on this whole the presentation as well as the discussion?
Yes, okay. Thank you for inviting me to say something more. I totally agree that there are a lot of issues in terms of regional cooperation and the role of South Korea and the international organization to foster regional cooperation in developing country like Vietnam and what I have mentioned, like we also in the same situation with the Nepal when we move from the least developing country to the middle income country, and the development funds from other countries to our country. When okay, I must say that will be less in the future, which will make us find it difficult to remain our high growth rate, and then that will be the time for us to think about a more sustainable economic development model. That's where we need to discuss and find out like a better way to collaborate with other countries in the region. And that's why I really treasure this event to have more discussions and viewpoints from other countries. And I agree with and I totally agree with sharing from Professor Pansy and Professor Kim and other scholars about our issues. And yes, post COVID-19, that will be a difficult time that we need to reshape the economic growth model and restructure the economy. And that will be a long way for us to discuss and find out an effective mechanism for cooperation. Thank you for asking me to attend.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I believe Mr. Dorothy from the Cambodia, right? Okay, so could you please add a little bit more about your comment?
Thank you for allowing me the floor to me once again. I think my few additional comment would be which sector, and especially for our countries, that the ODA should focus and be interested on. I think technology is one of the main challenge for us as a developing country, especially in this particular crisis time. We see that the technology gaps has hindered the process of many development agenda, because even though we have tried to catch up, but you know that one is the infrastructure, I mean the existing infrastructure, but the other is also the capacity of people. So I think this is one of the main priorities. If we have it before the pandemic, and I think this one would be the priority. But if we haven't got yet, but please put it as a priority for the next, the post-pandemic era. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I believe that the Professor Chung-Ang, could you actually add a little bit more about this comment? Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah. I feel sorry that my talk today seems a bit or much of the main topic. I also felt that it was necessary to re-establish the concept of international development and cooperation. And I also thought that it was time for small development and cooperation from below. I hope you stay healthy always. And thank you.
Regarding this the border, right? The cross the border and the border issue, nowadays it becomes very much important in international development cooperation situation, because in many cases the border area created much more internal and external conflict, and that's why we kind of sort of actually implied into the HDP triple nexus, the humanitarian development and the peace, that is going to be actually triple nexus from now on. So that's why since 2019, United Nations and as well as the other international organizations very much stressing out this HDP nexus. And so I'm pretty sure that the KOICA and the EDCF very much, they actually focusing on how we incorporate not only humanitarian aid, but also development as well as the peaceful operation could be into the one package, particularly in case of the border area. So that's why the border study is going to be very well preserved the partner area for this international development cooperation in the future. So please just keep up your good work on particular the border area. Then definitely we will find much more, very much in-depth the collaborating work in the future, I guess. Okay, I believe that is going to be the wrap up of the moderator of the last section, and I go to back to the let me see. Is there anyone I just missed to ask?
Professor Jean, would you like to comment on
yeah, oh yes,
before
please.
we finish?
Yeah, so I tried to find the anyone I actually missed to ask the comment. Okay,
so how was the interpretation went? How was your evaluation there,
yes,
Professor Chan?
Please.
Okay, no comment, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. So please, the Professor Johnson, could you just wrap up?
Okay, so I thank Professor Chan so mobilizing all the students to do the interpretation, simultaneous interpretation. So we benefited a lot. Okay, so I was in the job of communicating with all guys in email, and I feel I appreciate all of your effort coming here and talk and sharing your own knowledge and wisdom. So we learned a lot. So today was our first of this series of GSIS-KOICA webinar, and we hope that we can gather regularly in annual basis. So with more focus in Asia regions, because Asia region is the last potential area left out that which can increase greatly. Okay, so Korean government is actually focusing on the new southern policies. So because we think cooperation with the Asian area is really important for all of us in the region. So we hope that we can gather annually on regular basis and deepen our knowledge and understanding and discuss further. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so that is the end of our webinar. Thank you so much. Bye. So let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
이지연 팀장님 정말 감사드립니다. 너무 고생 많으셨어요. 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다.
이지연 팀장님 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다. 또 다시 연락드릴게요. 감사합니다.
원장님 통역 평가회에서 학생들이 너무나도 귀한 경험을 했다고.
너무 좋죠.
너무 좋았다고 해요. 저희가 스피커 한 분 초대해서 했던 데하고 다르게 이 웨비나 형식으로 하니까 정말 실제 그 회의를 완전 체험을 한 거잖아요. 정말 레알로. 그래서 너무 많이 좋았고, 또 다른 때 통역할 때보다도 정말 긴장되고 떨리면서 이거를 전체를 다 이렇게 할 수 있어서 정말 좋았고 감사하다는 인사를 많이 했습니다.
네, 그렇게 코멘트해 주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 그래서 앞으로 가능한 애뉴얼리 정기적으로 할 수 있는 기회를 마련하려고 저희가
너무
최선을
좋은 것
다하겠습니다.
같아요. 저도 너무
네.
재밌더라고요. 굉장히 흥미롭게 참여했습니다. 고맙습니다.
네, 교수님들 너무 팀장님들, 교수님들 너무 감사했습니다. 예, 다음에 또 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.
너무
감사합니다. 네.
감사합니다.